Another big security headline this week has been that a Doge employee and someone working for X as well exposed some secret keys for internal Xai models. Now, it's kind of interesting because there's actually a very, very similar breach that happened a while ago. But I'm not going to go into the detail of this. Instead, I just thought I'd bring with you the researcher that actually discovered this, how he discovered it, why it's significant, and what developers can do about it. All right, so I'm joined here by Philippe Caturegli. Welcome, Philippe. I'm so glad to chat with you today.
Thank you for having me.
That's right. It's a running joke that we have is that I can't pronounce Philippe's last name, but he's told me that I'm getting closer and closer. So I'm going to take that as a win.
That's a win. Yeah.
But Philippe, recently some kind of news has come out relates to research or at least investigations that you did about an Xai key that was leaked. This has been published in several publications at the moment, but not the least in Brian Kerb's blog. So maybe we just start with what actually happened here with this Xai key that was leaked.
Yeah, so that was I think on Sunday evening, but I got an alert on Monday morning that a key or a secret was potentially leaked by a developer. So I just got curious, looked at it. There was some things that were slightly interesting with this leak is that the developer was not using a standard Xai key. So the format of the key was slightly different, which I suspect is the reason why it didn't trigger like 100 other alerts. I'm using GitGuardian, so I have some automated alerts and monitoring in place. And on Monday, I got a notification that a high entropy strings was being leaked, which is not necessarily a secret, but it's a indicator that it could be a secret. So that's a string that has a high complexity that doesn't look like a normal word that can be used in secret, but it doesn't match any known pattern as a secret, so it's not necessarily detected as 100% being a secret. Kind of like I think you were talking also in the podcast about the Laravel app keys, and that's kind of the same thing. Sometimes when you have a secret key in an app, they recommend you to use a random string, but not with a known format. So there's ways to try to detect it with a higher probability of false positive. So that requires some manual investigation. So that's really what happened here. A developer leaked this key. Luckily, the key was labeled as XAPI_API_key. So it was fairly easy to figure out what it was, even though the format was not the standard XAI dash and a base 64 key. And since I already reported some keys to them in the past, I already had some tools ready to test the key, so I just threw the key in the tool and realized that we had access to a bunch of stuff that we shouldn't have access to. So I reached out to the developer to let him know. Looks like he got my email because he fixed it, but he never responded or thanked us. So then it snowballed from here, and that's why I get a little bit more press coverage.
Yeah. So this is the key out there that if a security researcher reaches out to you about a vulnerability, at least respond to them, because then the chances of it going to press are slightly smaller.
Yep, that's pretty much. Just a thank you would have been enough, but yeah. Anyway.
So, but you mentioned you had some tools from previous leaks here. We'll get into what this key gave access to in a minute. But what was the kind of previous leaks that we have? Why are we seeing such a problem with these Xai keys leaking out all over the place?
Yeah. So what's interesting is not so much the Xai key or anybody's Xai key being leaked. There's not much you can do with a standard API key of a normal user. These keys that we're talking about, either back in May, I think Brian Krebs had another article, and these keys are internal developers' keys that have access to a lot more models and information than the standard user key. And unfortunately, they don't have any restrictions in place, so the developers are using the same interface and the same API endpoints. It's just that they have more access. So when we reported it back in May for the same incident, we were kind of talking about the good practice of, if you have internal developers or if they have access to unreleased model, just give them like a special access. They should be able to access this API or this endpoint through a VPN or a special IP or different endpoints that is only accessible internally, rather than just putting it on the same endpoint as anybody else on the internet. Because then all an attacker needs is this API key to start interacting with the internal models or things that are not shouldn't be publicly accessible.
Yeah, so we're really talking about kind of an admin access key from someone that's like a developer that's working at Xai. And I think in this case they were a Doge employee, I think, as well.
Correct, yeah. I suspect that's why it got a little bit more coverage. Yeah, and then what I was trying to highlight is the fact that we already reported something very similar back in May. Besides removing the key, they didn't change anything. So it's still exactly the same thing happened. They didn't put in place any safeguards for if they have developers making the same mistake, then restricting the access to this endpoint. They just removed the key, probably because it was talked about in the news, and then move on to something else. So they didn't really take it seriously, in my opinion.
Right. And what, like, you know, in the reporting, that this key actually gave access to a whole bunch of different models, internal models and areas like that. Yeah, this is kind of interesting. And I remember that I made some content around the last time that this happened. But, you know, like, what's the risk? What's the risk there for, like, let's say an attacker or just some malicious user actually getting access to all these internal models and areas?
Yeah, so there's a little bit of speculation, obviously, because we didn't try to hack into Xai with this key. We only used the key to confirm that it was a valid key and it gave us access to some internal models, but we didn't go much further. But the speculation is, out of these 52 models that this key was giving, the previous key was giving access to about 30 different models. There are some models that are internal, that are labeled as Tesla or SpaceX, which we can assume that if they have models that are customized for these companies, they were trained with proprietary data from those companies. And then by doing some smart questions or interaction with the AI prompt, you can potentially force the AI to leak some information that it was trained on, which may not be public information. So it's not like any model or public model. The concern or what I was trying to highlight to them is more that you shouldn't expose internal models to anybody, because you can potentially leak some confidential information that the AI was trained on.
And I think too, what also strikes me as very concerning is that this was hard coded into a file. I mean, come on, like you're dealing with sensitive information here. You're part of a government employee, a government program that has like a plethora of access. We don't need to get to the political debate of like if Doge should have as much access to stuff as they do, right? But I mean, like hard coding a key, really? Like we're still here.
Right. Yeah, I know. And ironically, so when I detected the key initially on Monday, the developer was still actively working on the project. I could see that there was like regular commit like throughout the day. Ironically, it looks like he was vibe coding an AI agent to assist AI coding. So if you look at the project, it's a project for AI assisting coding, but it looks like he was vibe coding doing it.
Oh, that's hilarious. That's like, yeah, right there, prompt and cursor, like cursor, create a version of cursor.
Pretty much. And ironically, as he was progressing through the day and doing his vibe coding, he probably realized at some point that the key was in the code, and he did another commit to delete the key. Unfortunately, he didn't delete all his commit history, so it made it worse because now the key was actually in several commits, and that's when I emailed him know that, hey, your key may not be in the master, but it's still in all the other commits, and you may want to remove all this and cycle the key. Obviously, they got my email because not even 5 minutes later, all the commits were removed. They scratched the project and restarted from scratch. But they didn't revoke the key. So the next day, the key was still working. And as Brian Krebs published his article, the key was still valid. It is not valid anymore. So I guess he read the article somehow.
This kind of gets worse and worse and worse. I mean, like this is classic because I think what people, like the knee-jerk reaction from a lot of people that I guess don't have in-depth is like, oh, I'm just going to remove that key and push another commit. But like the diff exposes the key again. So if anyone missed it the first time, they're going to catch it on the second time because now it's propagated even further. Not to mention the fact that Git history pretty much lives forever, And I don't know if you have dealt with the fun of trying to rewrite Git history, but it, especially in a team,
I think the easiest was to wipe the whole repo and then start from scratch, which is what he did. But yeah, that's so. And again, this is a mistake that happens. I don't want to necessarily blame the developer for it. It's more that Xai, after us reporting the same incident 2 months ago, should have taken it seriously and have some slightly more restrictions for their internal developers.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Philippe, thanks so much for coming on the show and sharing this research. I hope to have you back. You always seem to find interesting things, so I'm sure we'll have you back on the show again. But thanks again for coming on. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.